Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know, we always get into some pretty interesting stuff here. And today is no exception. We're taking a look at Agyeman Bonsu's book, The Meditations of a Christian Saint.
Oh, yeah. This one's a fascinating read.
It is. And we're going to be focusing specifically on Chapter 4, where Bonsu introduces this concept of a Council of Living Saints.
Right, a Council of Living Saints.
Now, that title alone just, it sparks so many questions right off the bat. It's not your typical, saints in history kind of thing.
Not at all. It's actually quite radical in a way.
Yeah. So before we get too far, I think it's important to lay some groundwork here. Like, what is Bonsu even talking about when he uses the term living saint?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I mean, he's really challenging this traditional notion of sainthood, right?
Yeah.
Usually we think of saints as these, figures from the past, these almost mythical people who lived these extraordinary lives.
Yeah, long gone,
Exactly. But Bonsu's saying, no, saints aren't just these historical figures. They're living among us right now.
Right now, yeah. That's mind-blowing.
It is. And he goes on to define what he means by a living saint. And he does this by laying out these two fundamental laws that he says govern a saint's life.
Okay, so two laws. And what are they?
There's survival and love.
Survival and love. And at first glance, they might sound kind of simple and straightforward. But trust me, Bonsu digs deep into what these actually mean.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. Now, break those down for me a little bit. What's so special about these two laws?
So let's start with survival, right?
Okay.
Because when you think about it, survival is this basic instinct that all living things have.
Yeah, it's that drive to stay alive.
Exactly. But Bonsu takes it a step further. He says for humans, survival's not just about, breathing and eating. It's about this innate desire within us to grow and to learn and to overcome challenges and to really thrive.
So it's like this inherent push to become the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, you could say that. And then you've got love, which, might seem obvious when talking about sainthood.
Right. But I have a feeling this goes beyond, just romantic love or even love for family. Oh, you're absolutely right. For Bonsu, love is much broader than that. It's about recognizing this deep interconnectedness of all beings and actually having this deep commitment to putting the well-being of others before your own.
So it's like taking that survival instinct, that drive to thrive, and channeling it outwards.
Exactly. Using that energy to uplift others, to help them thrive as well. And here's where it gets really interesting, because Bonsu then connects this whole concept of love to patriotism.
Oh, wow. Okay, patriotism. How does that fit into the picture?
Well, he argues that a true saint loves their homeland deeply, right? But that love doesn't stop there. It expands outwards to encompass all of humanity.
So it's like this deep love for your own people, your own land, but also recognizing the shared humanity of everyone on the planet.
Precisely. It's holding those two things in tension, love for your own and love for all. And it's not easy.
No, it sounds incredibly challenging, actually, but also beautiful.
It is. It's a beautiful and challenging concept. And this is really at the core of what Bonsu considers a living saint, someone who embodies both those laws, survival and love.
Yeah. Okay. I'm starting to get a clearer picture now. But let's talk about this Council of Living Saints now. It's not just this theoretical idea, is it? This is an actual organization.
You got it. It's an organization that Bonsu himself founded, and it's based on these very principles.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're not just talking about some, abstract concept here. This is a real group of people who are actively trying to live out these principles.
Exactly. And one of the things that I find most fascinating about the council is this bold stance they take on the sacredness of all lands.
All lands? What do you mean?
So they don't privilege one nation or one people over another. They see divine providence sustaining all life everywhere.
Wow, that's a pretty radical idea. Especially in a world where, we often see so much conflict over resources and territory.
It is. It's like they're saying every inch of this planet is holy ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this ties into another one of their core principles, which is equitable resource sharing. They believe that all resources should be shared fairly, even across borders.
Right. They're not just focused on their own little corner of the world. They're thinking globally and acting globally, too. So
they're not just talking the talk. They're actually out there trying to walk the walk when it comes to, global cooperation and sharing. That's impressive. But I'm also kind of curious, how do they deal with the inevitable pushback? I mean, changing the world is never easy.
Right. And Bonsu actually talks about this in the book. He uses the term devils. What do you think he means by that?
Devils. Well, it makes you think of, some supernatural beings But I have a feeling it's probably a bit more nuanced than that.
You're exactly right. He's not just talking about, demons and monsters. He's referring to anything that hinders progress, anything that stands in the way of the flourishing of life.
So they could be like things like poverty, injustice, environmental destruction.
Yeah.
All those forces that kind of work against human well-being and the health of the planet.
Exactly. The council sees these devils as the true enemies, and their work is focused on dismantling them.
And there's that line that Bonsu writes that I find really powerful. We, the people, are one from one God.
Yes, such a powerful statement. It really underlines that idea that we are all interconnected, and that we need to work together to overcome these challenges.
And the council isn't just about, these lofty ideals. They're actually out there doing the work.
Exactly.
There are examples in the book, right?
Absolutely. They're involved in all sorts of projects aimed at helping people in need, protecting the environment, creating a more just and equitable world.
So they're really rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not just philosophy for them. It's about action.
You got it. It's about putting those principles into practice in the real world. And those examples really help to, bring the whole concept of the council to life.
They do. They make it feel so much more real and tangible. And it's inspiring to see a group like this taking such a proactive approach to tackling these huge global issues.
Yeah.
But I am curious, what do you think sets their approach apart from, other organizations doing similar work?
Well, what I find fascinating is that they don't just focus on addressing the symptoms of problems. They really try to get to the root causes of these devils,
So they're not just putting band-aids on poverty or injustice. They're looking for deeper, more systemic solutions.
Exactly. They understand that these issues are complex and interconnected. Like, take poverty, for example. They recognize that it's not simply about a lack of money. It's often tied to lack of opportunity, lack of education, lack of access to resources. And these things are all intertwined,
Yeah. So it's not enough to just hand out money or food. You have to create lasting change by addressing those underlying systemic issues.
Exactly. And this requires a level of commitment that goes beyond a simple donation or volunteering a few hours a month. The council's approach is about dedicating your life to this work, to creating real and lasting change.
It's a pretty tall order. But reading about their work, it does give me a sense of hope, that there are people out there who are truly committed to making the world a better place. What about their philosophy stands out to you?
Well, for me, it's their unwavering belief in the potential of humanity. Even in the face of so much suffering and conflict, they remain optimistic.
Yeah.
They see the good in people and believe that we can overcome these challenges if we work together.
It's like they're choosing to focus on the light even when surrounded by darkness. And that's a really powerful perspective.
It is, and I think their focus on love as a driving force is also key. Their work isn't about ego or self-interest. It's about selfless service to something bigger than themselves.
Yeah. And Bonsu makes it clear that this isn't just about joining some elite group or organization. It's about embodying these saintly qualities in our own lives in whatever way we can.
Exactly. He's not giving us a step-by-step guide to sainthood. He's presenting a set of principles, a way of thinking, and encouraging us to figure out how to apply them to our own unique circumstances.
And that's actually quite empowering because it means that anyone has the potential to live a saintly life, regardless of their background, their beliefs, or their circumstances.
Absolutely. It's about making conscious choices every day to align ourselves with those principles of survival and love, choosing to act in ways that contribute to the well-being of others and the planet.
So even if we never officially join the Council of Living Saints, we can still strive to live by those same principles and make a positive difference in our own way. That's a really hopeful message, isn't it? That each of us in our own way has the potential to be a force for good in the world.
It is. And when you think about it, that's a pretty amazing thought. If more and more people start embracing this way of thinking, imagine the ripple effect it could have.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What would the world look like if we all started making those small, conscious choices every day to embody those saintly qualities? Could we actually create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive?
It's a beautiful vision, and one that's certainly worth striving for.
It is. And Bonsu's book doesn't offer all the answers, but it definitely gives us a lot to think about and a powerful framework for approaching these challenges.
It does. And ultimately, it leaves us with the question, if living saints are truly among us, how can we recognize them? And more importantly, how can we recognize that potential within ourselves?
That is a great question to ponder. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this deep dive into the Council of Living Saints.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like they're really trying to dig beneath the surface and figure out what's driving these problems in the first place.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of work. And a lot of honesty, too, because sometimes those root causes can be uncomfortable to face.
Oh, absolutely. It's always easier to just slap a Band-Aid on something and move on.
Yeah.
But that doesn't actually solve anything.
Right. It just kicks the can down the road.
Yeah.
And often makes the problem worse in the long run.
Yeah. So what are some examples of how the council is trying to get at these root causes? Like you mentioned poverty earlier. How are they approaching that?
Well, they recognize that poverty isn't just about a lack of money. It's about a lack of opportunity, a lack of education, a lack of access to resources.
Yeah, all those things are interconnected.
Right. And so their approach is multifaceted. They work on creating educational programs, they advocate for policies that promote economic justice, they support sustainable development projects.
Like the holistic approach.
Exactly. They're trying to create an environment where people can actually lift themselves out of poverty, not just get a temporary handout.
And that's really what lasting change is all about, right? Addressing the underlying systems and structures that perpetuate these problems.
Absolutely. And it's not easy work. It requires a lot of patience and persistence, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
Yeah. But when you read about the work they're doing, it really does give you a sense of hope.
It does. It shows that there are people out there who are deeply committed to creating a better world.
And what I find particularly inspiring about their approach is this unwavering belief in the potential of humanity.
Yeah. Even in the face of so much darkness and suffering, they choose to see the light.
It's like they refuse to give up on us.
Exactly. And they believe that if we can tap into that inherent goodness that's within each of us, we can accomplish incredible things.
And that's what love is all about, right? Believing in the best in each other and supporting each other to reach our full potential.
Exactly. And that's the kind of love that fuels the work of the council. It's not sentimental or mushy. It's a fierce and powerful force for good in the world.
And it's contagious. When you see people living that way, it inspires you to want to do the same.
Absolutely. It's like a ripple effect. One act of kindness can lead to another, and before you know it, the whole world is starting to shift.
And Bonsu makes it clear that this isn't just about joining some exclusive club or organization. It's about embodying these saintly qualities in our everyday lives.
Right. It's about asking ourselves, how can I live in a way that brings more love and more light into the world?
Yeah, and that's a question we can all ask ourselves, regardless of our background or beliefs or circumstances.
Exactly. Sainthood isn't some special status reserved for a select few. It's a way of being that's available to all of us.
And that's actually quite empowering, because it means that we all have the potential to make a difference.
We do. And it starts with those small choices we make every day.
The choice to be kind. The choice to speak up for what's right. The choice to lend a helping hand.
Those are the choices that create a better world.
And those are the choices that make us living saints.
One step at a time.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Agamon Bonsu's idea of living saints and this council he founded, I keep coming back to this question, like, how do we actually spot these living saints in our everyday lives?
That's a great question. And, the answer might be simpler than we think. It's not about looking for these, grand gestures or superheroic feats. It's about noticing those small acts of kindness, compassion, courage that we encounter every day.
So it's not about some mystical aura or, special powers. It's about those everyday people who are choosing to live in a way that uplifts others and just makes the world a little bit brighter.
Exactly. It's the person who goes out of their way to help a stranger. The one who speaks up against injustice, even when it's uncomfortable. The one who dedicates their time and energy to making their community a better place. Those are the folks who are embodying those saintly qualities, often without even realizing it,
I love that. It makes this whole idea of sainthood feel so much more attainable. It's not about achieving some impossible standard of perfection. It's about making those daily choices to live in alignment with those principles of survival and love that Bonsu talks about.
And it's those small, seemingly insignificant choices that can have this ripple effect, inspiring others, creating a chain reaction of goodness.
One act of kindness can inspire another and another and so on.
Exactly.
It's like that old saying, be the change you want to see in the world. And Bonsu's work really underscores that idea, We don't have to wait for someone else to fix the world. We can start by being the living saints we want to see in our own lives and in our communities.
And that's a powerful and hopeful message to end on. We all have the potential to make a difference, to embody those saintly qualities, and to contribute to creating a world where all life can thrive.
So as you head back out into the world, we'll leave you with this challenge. Look for those everyday living saints, those sparks of light that are all around us. And even more importantly, ask yourself, how can you be a force for good in the world today? What small choices can you make to bring a little more love and a little more light into your corner of the universe? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.